Hello and welcome to this special discussion on the wire around demonetization, something that the nation is debating for the last 40 days and probably will debate for the next several months. So we have with us a special guest, Dr. Narendra Jadhav, who wears several hats. He's a member of parliament, Rajya Sabha. He's an educationist. He's a writer. He's written several books. And his basic training is that of an economist. He was the chief economist at the Reserve Bank of India, which is what makes him very qualified to tell us a lot of things about the dynamics of the post-demonetization world. Welcome to our show, Narendra Jadhav.
Thank you. Thank you, Venu.
So, please tell us, what do you expect in the next few months? Now, we know what has happened in the last 40 days.
Right.
The government has taken a big step. It has had some short-term negative effects, pain, but there is a hope that in the long run this will be beneficial to us, and a whole lot of new measures are also being discussed, which Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been talking about. Demonetization is not the only thing that is that this government is contemplating. There will be several other steps which you have spoken about in other fora. Now, tell us, what's your sense? What would you tell our viewers to expect in the next, say, 6 months?
Before we go to what to expect in the next 6 months, let's quickly understand the enormity of the kind of changes that are taking place. There are 6 different things that I would like to flag. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. First one is, of course, demonetization, which is a historic step. Second one is the cash disclosure scheme that has become effective yesterday. Then third one is restrictions on gold holdings that has come. And the fourth one is the massive encouragement to digital payments. Fifth one is GST. And today the Honorable Finance Minister has announced a special package for the small traders. All these 6 measures, each one of them important
and
in
its
own way.
Another big one, which the Prime Minister flagged the day before in his meeting in UP, where he said that political parties will be asked to, or there should be a consensus on political parties transparently reporting all cash donations from individuals which they have been collecting all these years.
That's right. Yes. But the 6 things, these 6 things have become operational, and we're talking about many more things to happen. I believe that these 6 things together, each one of them important in its own way, these 6 things are going to completely change the way Indian economy has been functioning, and it would be. Now, what do I expect to see happen in future? There is a lot of talk about this. You know, there have been predictions made about
let's say the budget.
On budget. But before
GST is a certainty.
Absolutely.
Budget, right?
GST is a certainty, although one is not 100% sure whether it will become operational from 1st April 2017. There is a window of opportunity that it has to start by 16th of September, and it will happen. My sense is that because this session, the latest session of the Parliament was washout, maybe 1st April looks even more difficult than what it did earlier. But within 3 months from 1st April, I have a reasonable feeling. I'm reasonably assured that it will.
When do you expect a certain stability in decision making the government? Because yesterday, when the government came up with some restrictions on the number of deposits one could make, there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anger also, because the finance minister had specifically said in a tweet that asking people not to rush to deposit their money in banks and spread themselves, until 30th December. So when the RBI announcement came, there was a lot of consternation as to why is this restriction coming deposits. So you've been in the RBI.
Right.
So do you think RBI should have put such restrictions?
No, there's a lot of criticism being made that every day new things are coming, and this is 56th modification.
58th
and
actually.
58th actually. Okay. Now that is seen as something that as if the authorities were not sure, and therefore they are making these changes, and they are making these changes arbitrarily. I completely disagree with that. This is a sort of fine tuning that is being done. Let's review the kind of changes that have taken place. Please understand that at the time when the decision was made, there was, the common criticism is that enough preparation was not done. That is something which has been bandied out. Now, please understand that on one hand, a lot of preparations was being done, and on the other, there was the imperative of maintaining the secrecy. Surprise element was the most important one. Now, what kind of preparation they would have done? Let us first understand that for a country of a continental size, it is not possible to be fully prepared. In any case, now take the case of printing of the cash. That was going on for 6 to 8 months. So there is no doubt about that. Now let's talk about ATMs. We have in India 215,000 ATMs, and they needed recalibration. A lot of people have said, why did they not recalibrate that? Now just imagine, in the old system there were 3 bins in the ATM machines, one for 100 rupees, another for 500 rupees, and third one for 1000 rupees. Suppose that RBI had issued an instruction that drop all that and make new bins with 100, 500 and 2000. What would have happened?
Although some people suggested that the same size could have been the replaced currency.
No, but
could have
they have to keep
fitted
changing.
in the same size. Yeah.
Venuji, they had to keep changing because of the counterfeiting problem.
Yeah.
They had to do that because, remember, one of the major objective was to hit the counterfeiting. There, the criticism was that the only 400 crore rupees worth of counterfeit 0.02%. So what is the big deal? It is a big deal. Because how many people have died out of terrorism? About 35,000 people. From 1994 to 2016, 35,000 people. So if somebody says, what is this this number is very small. 35,000 people as a ratio of the entire population of 130 crore is very, very small. That doesn't make it a small problem. Yeah. If 400 crore rupees currency, fake currency, was good enough or bad enough to kill 35,000 innocent lives, it required a concerted action, and that action was one of the objectives of demonetization.
Okay, now looking forward, what do you expect, what do you expect next? You talked about gold. So far only cash has been attacked, which is a small portion of the black wealth, about 4-5%.
Right.
Now you are very big on attacking gold.
Right.
Now you mentioned some restrictions on gold.
Yeah.
So what do you think the government should do or will do?
Well, this is really a subject which is very close to my heart. There's no country in the world which has so much of passion for gold that we have. For example, every year we import 1,000 tons of gold, out of which 1/3 is paid for in cash. These are the estimates. How much gold do we have in our system? The Reserve Bank has something like less than 600 tons of gold, but in the private hands, what we have is something like 25,000 tons of gold. Not to mention the temples. In temples, we have something like 10,000 plus tons of gold. So together, we are talking about 35,000 tons of gold. 1 ton of gold is about 35 million US dollars, which means that the total value of the gold stocks that we have is as high as 900 billion US dollars. In rupee terms.
So can you persuade Tirupati to give their gold and bring it into the productive stream while
let's get the size
while maintaining their ownership?
Right. Let us get the size first. The size is 58 lakh crore rupees.
Yeah, about $800 billion, right?
$850 billion. So that is about, and the ratio of GDP, it is about 38 to 40% of GDP. So very large amount of gold is sunk, and it is a dead asset.
So how do you bring it to productive use?
Now that is where.
I remember, if you remember, in 2015, government came up with a gold certificate scheme.
Yes.
Gold certificate scheme.
That did not work.
But nobody came up and gave deposited gold in banks.
No, there are many problems involved here. But the basic issue is this, there is a huge stock of wealth that is kind of sunk in a dead asset like gold. Very small part of gold is actually converted into jewelry for export and so on. So if we can find, what we need is a financial engineering device which will make this gold work for the country, work for the economy. For that we need a very unconventional method without...
Do you think the government has a plan?
I believe they should. I can only say they should, because when it comes to gold, there is always a feeling of emotional.
So what would you advise the Prime Minister? What sort of scheme?
I would advise Prime Minister that the gold which is there in the temples, there's no feeling attached to that. Individuals, there are feelings attached and so on.
You said that itself, temples themselves have 10,000 tons.
10,000 tons. So we must find some mechanism. For your information, even International Monetary Fund, after the gold was dethroned in the international currency system, with the second amendment to the Articles of Agreement of International Monetary Fund, that happened on 1st April 1978. From then onwards, IMF has been regularly selling its stock of gold, because earlier everything was based on gold. As the system changed, they have been selling gold. There is no reason why something should not be done by the government, starting with the gold in the temples.
Okay. So we'll now, there are some questions from Facebook viewers. Rishabh Raj wants to know, are we really moving towards a cashless society? What are the loopholes in the government's aim of going cashless?
Here there is a confusion.
Loopholes, I guess he also talks about infrastructure problems.
Right. Rishabh Raj, your question is very good, but please understand, we are not moving towards cashless society. We are moving towards less cash society. Just to give you a number, what is the proportion of currency to GDP in our country? It is said to be about 12.5%. So our transactions is heavily dominant in terms of cash. Take the case of industrial countries, developed countries, excluding United States. US is an exception because dollar bill is used everywhere in the world.
Japan is 18%.
Japan also is high. But most developed countries have the ratio of 4 to 5. What we are talking about is reducing the proportion of cash in the total GDP from 12.5% as of now to say 7 or 8%. That by itself would be a major achievement. This does not mean that we will get away, we will get rid of the cash. People ask funny questions that for small transactions like buying a glass of water in a temple, how do we pay by credit card? We can't pay by credit card. The currency is going to remain. All the denominations will remain. It is just that too much use of currency which has been there also for the purpose of not paying tax, that is to be plugged. We are talking about the moment that transactions become digital, as we move away from cash to digital, the transactions become transparent, and therefore they become more accountable, and that's why government gets more tax.
I think what Rishabh Raj is probably also hinting at or trying to ask is, how prepared are we with infrastructure in terms of number of ATMs to population ratio, which is abysmally low at the moment.
Yes.
Not only the instruments, point of sale instruments,
POS,
and handheld ATMs for 150,000 banking correspondents who can then take it to villages and offer banking services. So are we prepared?
No, we are not prepared. We have a long way to go, but this is high time that we start moving in that direction. That is why I heartily welcome Finance Minister's announcement that for every village with less than 10,000 population, there would be 2 point of sales. Machines would be installed there. And there are many measures being taken. And importantly, what I see happening, you were asking, how do I see things happening? What I see is that in future, we will have a system where withdrawal of cash could be systematically discouraged, and using payment, digital modes of payment would be systematically encouraged. And that is going to be very important.
And there's another question by Joseph Varghese. So Joseph wants to ask you, why are rules and restrictions being imposed on the general public on a daily basis while conditions are made easier repeatedly for tax evaders to split their ill-gotten gains generally? What he's saying is that the big guys are not suffering any pain. The big political parties are pushing in their cash without any questions asked. The big businesses are pushing it without. Only the small people are.
No, big businesses are not pushing it without cost. They were frantic, and what they were doing is, I'm not taking side of big businesses at all. You know, unfortunately, what has happened is that in the people who were swelling the queue, there are three kinds of people. One was senior citizens who thought that their money is lost, and they got excited and they wanted to draw money. The second one is people who needed money for their day-to-day transactions, and they did not keep enough cash in home, and whatever they had in the old currency, they wanted to convert. Both of them, I have my fullest sympathy for them. But the third category, which was there for quite some time, was what the new word that has been expressed, cash coolies. People rented out to stand in queue, and these were the people who were really swelling the crowds. Please also ask yourself a question. Why was there no riot taking place? You know, the situation was such that there could have been riots. That possibility could not have been denied. It is because the people felt, this is my perception, common people felt that it is good that we will bear with some inconvenience as long as these bad guys are being punished. So in the beginning there was a big response, but Venu, I must also admit, in the last 10 days or so, their enthusiasm is waning because it has been discovered that you know, many private banks, some public sector banks also, but mainly private banks, you know, they have found large amount of cash, and that has made people very angry. Very angry.
That last 10
that
days.
we stand in the queue and there are the big stashes of currency, new currency notes are found in the hands of some people. Now this makes...
You're right, that's causing a lot
that is causing a lot of anguish. What I'm saying is that just because there is no need to condone these things, but let us understand that while we appreciate the feelings of the common man, and there is no doubt that this should not have happened, but this is human failing, and the severest punishment must be given to these people to make the point. So that is human failing.
So there's another question from Balaji Pattabhiraman. Why are measures to curb black money generation non-existent? Maybe he's asking outside of this demonetization. What are the other measures? I mean, in terms of, say, political funding, there are several other big things.
No, let's understand this.
Although Prime Minister Modi did say that it will be made transparent.
You know, this whole thing is... So
do you think the Prime Minister will announce something in the... or should announce something in the immediate...
In the budget?
Okay. On political funding?
No. He may. I do not know. I'm not going to make any political comment on that. What I'm saying is that, let us understand, what has been hit is the passive part of black money. Black money is of course not black in color, it is the money on which the taxes have not been paid. I divide the black money into two parts. Active black money and passive black money. Active black money is involved, already deployed in the real estate, gold, precious metals, or what have you. Whereas the passive amount of black money is currency hoards, something which has been held in the form of currency. What we have done is to make a hit there. It is not touching, believe me, black money which is already deployed in the real estate has not been affected. So this is only a beginning.
So you have to, real estate also has to be attacked. Like you said, gold has to be attacked.
This is a beginning. This is not an end. But what the approach that the government has is very valid. That we will increasingly make it difficult for the future generation of black money. For example, electoral reform you talked about, but let's talk about economic reforms. You know, GST coming in, it's very important. GST makes the whole thing transparent, and therefore it becomes very difficult to evade tax because it can be tracked, and most importantly, the physical interaction with the government official is minimized. That means the corruption would be lower, or people will find some other way. So what I'm saying is that the way economy is moving, we are moving towards cleaner, healthier and robust economy. That is what is the vision of the government, as I understand.
Okay. So, so there's a question from Yana Shanmugam Subramanian.
Okay.
He says, that in Venezuela, similar move was made last week.
Yeah.
And the people protested, and it led to withdrawal of demonetization.
Yeah.
Why is it not happening in India?
Right. First of all, no, this
whether,
is
first,
very,
he
very
also
good
asked
question.
whether both cases are comparable. He's also asking.
They are not comparable at all. They are not comparable at all. This is the first time, I believe, in the history that demonetization has taken place for exclusively for curbing the black money and the counterfeit money. The Venezuela, what Venezuela did, that has happened in other countries also, like Germany. Weimar Germany, it had happened. Bolivia, it happened some time back. Brazil, it happened some time back. And now it has happened in Venezuela. These are all the cases of hyperinflation. Take the case of Bolivia.
But India didn't suffer any inflation.
Absolutely not. No, we did suffer from inflation, but not hyperinflation.
Not at this moment. Yeah.
Let me give you an example. 100 Bolivar is the largest currency denomination. Do you know what was the value of that 100 Bolivar last week when demonetization took place? 2 American cents.
Oh.
Can you imagine? So 100 Bolivar had become equivalent to 2 American cents.
Hyperinflation.
So money was not even worth the paper on which
So
it
the
was
motivation
printed.
was completely different.
Completely different. And therefore, the withdrawal, etc., it doesn't apply to our case at all. In our case, inflation was not anywhere near hyperinflation. But there was a serious problem of counterfeit money and the black money. So that was the objective. They are not comparable, and therefore the question of withdrawal is just not on the cards.
Okay, there's a question by George Pokil, and he asks whether the bogey of black money, is it also aimed at spurring a sort of kind of nationalism by the government?
Bogey of black money
to spur nationalism, as he puts it, in order to minimize resistance. Essentially, what he's asking is this being clothed in some kind of a new nationalism, so that there is no resistance to this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Nationalism. Our track record is the 1991 crisis, when the Indian economy was at its lowest ebb, and when we had nowhere to turn to. All these NRI were taking money out. All the money was being taken out. And that is why those days, if you remember, 1991, they used to be called Bharat se bhaga Bharatwasi. So when it comes to hard currency or cash or wealth, nationalism cannot be overstretched.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Shubham Singh, Kansana, asks, what are the policies to protect citizens from online fraud? What is the government planning to do about it in the context of this rapid digitization?
Very valid question. As far as the digital payments are concerned, I'm not even sure whether all the right laws are in place. I also am not sure whether all these mobile wallet payment, whether they are entirely secure. And therefore, I think a lot of work needs to be done. As we move towards the digital payments, we need to have the relevant laws, and we also have cyber security of the highest possible order. Frauds also take place. The counter example is that when we are using cash, there are pickpockets. So that is going to happen. But the cyber will change. Lack of cyber security, the risk involved would be very high. And we have to be very, very careful about it.
Okay. So, Shubham Kumar Sarkar asks a very commonsensical question. If this,
those are the difficult ones.
He asks if the size of 500 and the new notes being the same as the size of the old one, with other technical features to protect from future counterfeiting, wouldn't this have been much easier?
I believe partly this is true. I really believe that one of the problems that has happened is that 500 notes did not come in time. 2,000 rupee notes.
What's your sense? How many 500 notes do we have now? How much will it take
No.
to fully replace?
No. There is no question of fully replacing. Get that out of your mind.
Okay,
No.
reasonably replaced, yeah.
Reasonably. We don't want. We want to move towards a less cash society.
Yeah.
So we don't need. So the calculations that people have made that this is the rate at which the printing is done and therefore it will take 7 months and therefore 7 months the problem will continue. Wrong. Technically correct. Arithmetically correct. But we are not going to need all the cash same as before. If from 12.5% as GDP, if our cash requirement comes down to 6 or 7%, we don't have to create all that cash. A. B. They have to keep changing the currency size, style with the security features added because of the counterfeiting kind of problem.
Okay.
And they have done that. My only complaint is that the 500 rupee note, it took much longer than expected to reach people. So what happened was, in a lot of places,
You think now it's reaching people in adequate numbers?
not even now.
So when will it happen? Neither RBI nor the finance ministry
It should happen.
is giving a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
Say by March end it will be reasonable.
No. What is happening now in the last
500
15
notes
days?
will be in the market.
Last 15 days, Venuji, what has happened is that people have 2000 rupee note. They buy something of 100 rupees or 150. How will they get the change? Although RBI has increased the production of 50 rupee, 100 rupee note a lot, enough number of 500 rupee notes are not available, particularly in the rural economy. So they have 3 days back, they have shifted gears and now they are putting a lot of accent on production of 500 rupee note bills. So I believe that in the next 10 to 15 days, all the problems will be over. I see the queues being over by end of the month. But the economy will take another quarter to recover.
Okay.
What will happen is that in the last quarter of this year, that is September to December quarter of 2016, growth rate is going to dip. January to March quarter, that is the first quarter of the calendar year 2017, also there will be a dip. Overall for the entire financial year.
After April it will be, the pickup will come.
But over the financial year, Dr. Manmohan Singh is saying that the growth rate will come down by 2 percentage points. Many people are saying it will come down by 3 percentage points. I do not accept that with all the due respects.
It could be 1 to 2%?
1%, not even 2%. RBI is saying half a percentage point. I think they are being
No, but RBI did not consider demonetization.
No, but
RBI gave a outlook on a business as usual basis, and they specifically said that they were not considering the effects of demonetization.
They are saying, they have also indicated that the decline of 10 to 15 basis points in this quarter would be because of demonetization. There is a small statement, but that's not the point. The point is, I think RBI is being overly optimistic, and those who are saying more than 2% are overly pessimistic. My sense is 1 percentage point decline, and we will take off from April 2017. The economy will not only take off, let's recognize the fact. Today, India is the fastest growing country in the world with growth rate about 7.5%. Okay, if 1% it goes down to 6.5%, fine.
It'll come back
but when
7.5.
it bounces, it is not only bouncing back to higher growth rate. Venuji, what I'm trying to emphasize is this, that this time when we bounce back, the higher growth rate would be accompanied by a very large creation of jobs that is needed. Even when we were taking great pride in saying that our growth rate is...
but how many jobs, currently the private investment has not picked up.
I'll come to that. I'll come to that.
And the jobs on the data...
There are job losses we are talking about.
So
this quarter, next quarter.
I'm talking about pre-demonetization.
Right.
There were jobs decline. Right.
By
65%.
Look at it this way, that every year, 12.8 million people enter the job market. How many of them get the job? Very few. That means, although we are taking pride, and legitimately so, in high growth rate, let us face it, that there is a ticking time bomb, that enough jobs are not being created.
That's why I'm asking you, after April 2017,
right.
What will happen which will lead to more jobs? That's what my point is.
Correct. The key is interest rate. Simple as that. Now, why that will happen? There are two things. One is that statistically, the studies show that wherever there is a higher incidence of black money, there is higher inflationary pressure. And that's very easy to understand. When there's too much black money sloshing around, people splurge money, and therefore there is inflationary pressure. To the extent that the black money is affected,
inflation will trend downwards.
Inflationary pressures will be down. This is one part. The other part of the story is that the banks are flooded with cash. 13.5 lakh crore have been deposited in the bank. Now, inflationary pressures down, banks flooded with cash. This combination paves the way for interest rate
higher
reduction.
bank lending.
Bigger reduction. I expect.
And therefore higher bank lending.
Absolutely. Believe me, I think that I would be surprised in the next 4 months, interest rates can actually come down by 1.5 percentage point. The question here is, why did RBI not do it? RBI had a policy.
Why did it not do it?
There is a reason. There is a reason. When did the interest rate lowering cycle started in India? It started in January 2015. From January 2015 until December 2016, how much is the reduction in the policy rates by the Reserve Bank of India? Pretty good. 175 basis points. Out of this,
so Raghuram Rajan did a decent job of that.
Well, that is a separate subject. What I am saying is that RBI lowered the interest rates by 175 basis points. Now, banks are guilty, in my opinion. What they did was, out of this 175 basis point decline in policy rate, they passed on this decline to the deposit rate, saving money for themselves. But they did not pass on pari passu to the lending rate. Deposit rates have come down by 170 basis points.
But there was a reason for that. The banks said that they were saddled with so much non-performing assets.
That is their excuse.
That they didn't have enough money to lend.
No, boss, let's get the numbers straight. Out of 175 basis points reduction, they reduced the deposit rates by 170 basis points. Lending rates were lowered by 85 basis points. So even before demonetization, in my opinion, but for the excuse of higher NPAs, they should have been ready to lower the interest rate by 85 basis points. 85 basis points, that's nearly 1 percentage point. Now, they are being flushed with 13.5 lakh crore of additional liquidity and the inflationary pressure being down. What they have done is that right now, I think the RBI, when it announced the policy on December 7th, they focused on the transmission effect. What will happen is that the transmission effect should come first and then they will further lower. I would expect in the next policy, interest rate to come down by at least 25 basis points and this will be a new virtuous cycle can start. Over the next 4 to 6 months, I expect interest rates to come down by 1.5 percentage point. 125 basis point reduction in interest rate. You know what does that mean? That means EMI will come down by 15%. That means 15% addition to your wealth purchasing power. So lowering of interest rate by this magnitude will give tremendous boost
to
the manufacturing and small SMS, small scale industries, and that will not only improve the growth prospects, but it will also make the economy healthier in terms of creation of large amount of jobs.
The way you're explaining
that is the logic.
The way you're explaining it, your logic sounds good. But and you're also suggesting that after the effects of demonetization wears away and economy starts picking up from April, after the short-term negative effects wear away and from April economy picks up, you are suggesting that the financial sector and banks have a key role to play in kickstarting the economy, right?
Absolutely.
Now, tell me, how do you address these two problems, which are pre-demonetization problems?
Very simple.
One, banks saddled with problem assets of 10 lakh crores, which Jayant Sinha had said a year ago when he was Minister of State for Finance.
Absolutely.
And number two, banks also not lending because they have shortage of capital. They need about, I'm told, about 4 lakh crores of fresh capital to be able to lend more. Now, these two problems, how are they addressed? No, they have nothing to do with demonetization.
No, it has to do very much with demonetization. See,
No, they existed before demonetization.
true. What I'm saying is, with demonetization, two things are going to happen. One is that banks are going to be flushed with funds, and we talked about it. Second thing that is going to happen, boss, is that government revenue is going to take a big boost.
Okay.
Today,
By taxing the depositors, is it?
by those who are not paying tax coming under the tax net, and greater transparency, greater penalty, and voluntary disclosure of cash. Take the case of this voluntary disclosure of cash scheme. What government has done is that when anybody comes forward with voluntary cash disclosure, 50% of that will be taken by the government in terms of the tax plus penalty. Out of the remaining 50%, 25%, that one half of the remaining one, will be retained with the government in a Pradhan Mantri Garib Yojana, Garib Kalyan Yojana, and only 25% these people will have access to. Now, this.
So, what's your estimate? How much do you think government can collect from the tax declaration scheme?
I believe in the adage in Sanskrit that Sarvanashe Samutpanne Ardhyam Tyajati Panditaha. So, when everything is being lost, समझदार आदमी जो होता है वो 50% पर खुश रहता है. So I hope, please do understand that when the demonetization came, lot of people were exchanging money, old for new, and and they were being paid 30%. That was the going rate then. The rate has now come down, I'm told.
Yeah, sure.
Now, what was the government getting that? Nothing. Now they have come up with this scheme. Under this scheme, what will happen is that those who come forward and declare their cash, remember, all that cash that is deposited, a lot of people say or feel that the fact that the money currency which was in circulation has come back to the banking system, so demonetization failed. Wrong. This in itself is an achievement. Because the money which was sloshing around, money which was concealed, hidden, not working for the economy.
Now you can track this money, you say.
You can track this
for
money.
Tax purposes and
it
other
has
purposes.
Come in the mainstream, you can track this. This in itself is an achievement. In addition to that, please do understand that this is a big jump in financial inclusion, and what will happen is that government revenues would get a heavy boost. Today, tax to GDP ratio in India is something like 10.5%, which is one of the lowest in the world.
No, that's only center. Which states is about 16%.
But still it is lower. You combine that, 15-16% is not very, very high. There is a scope for improving that. So there are lots of possibilities. What one is talking about is that with the government revenues going up, suppose that this cash voluntary disclosure scheme gets a lot of response, the money which has come into the banks, they are going to put officials behind bars. I mean, officials going to be active, scrutinizing, everything is being done. So government revenues will get a big boost. When the government revenues go up, they can use the government revenues for three things. First of them could be recapitalization of banks.
Sure.
Second, shortfall of GST, possible shortfall of GST. And third, any social welfare schemes like education, health, and so on. So it is matching perfectly, I think.
Sure. The way you've explained it,
sir,
I hope your optimism bears out, and let's hope that there are long-term gains from this. So thank you very much for.
By the long term, Dr. Manmohan Singh says, in the long run we are all dead. We are not talking about long run. We are talking about few months from now.
Okay. So thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that's all we have for now. Thanks for watching.